It is the latest podcast here. Rob Staton and Robbie Williams joining you to talk about the big game against the Rams coming up this weekend. We've got a lot of things to get through as well. Apart from that, after one of the more disappointing losses in the Pete Carroll era of the weekend, there's a huge injury list as well for the Seahawks going into this game against the Rams too. Robbie, have you ever seen the film Nightmare on Elm Street?
I have, yes.
I'm fearful that you're going to get to see Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 this weekend when the Seahawks play the Rams. This is never an easy opponent for the Seahawks. It's always been a difficult game. The Sean McVay offense seems to have mastered what the Seahawks were doing on defense even 2 years ago, let alone the current state that the Seahawks defense is in. How concerned are you going into this game?
Yeah, I'm super concerned about this game. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster on this. I mean, the recipe has been given out on how to beat the Seahawks, right? You put a lot of pressure on Russ, you're going to give up some yards and some points against the Seahawks, but as long as you can put a lot of pressure on him, make him make some mistakes, and then you don't even need to run the ball against this team. You can just throw all over the field. And the Rams and Sean McVay, that is what they do. They throw the ball really well. They get rid of the ball really quickly. They run crisp routes. They run a lot of, screen routes and such. So this is a game that you're right. I'm not confident in this game at all.
I was listening to the Chris Sims podcast just today, actually, and they had a big breakdown of the game. They spent a considerable amount of time talking about the Seahawks defense. And I quite like listening to people who are not necessarily inside Robbie with the Seahawks, people who don't follow them religiously game to game, people who've maybe got a broader perspective on the league and know how other teams are getting on. I just think it's important to not just see to hear from people who are constantly fixated with the Seahawks. And what they were saying, it was pretty incredible. I mean, there's Chris Sims and the co-host there. They said it was embarrassing. They said there was no pressure early in the game, which obviously we all saw against the Bills. Then they switched to overly aggressive blitzing and gave up huge chunk plays down after down. Sims's co-host suggested they looked like they were playing with 9 defenders for most of the game. And he said it he wasn't joking. He wasn't saying that as to be funny. He was saying that as, no, that's actually what it looked like. They talked about all of the blitzing because, when he came up with 7 sacks, I didn't study the game. I was watching the game as a fan, Robbie, as I imagine you were as well. And 7 sacks, I just assumed, just because they're blitzing loads, they got a few more sacks. But then they actually broke it down. There were 4 sacks with the blitz and 3 without the blitz. So actually, they were the blitz wasn't really having that much of an impact. Josh Allen had over 10 yards of play when they blitzed, which suggests that it wasn't working at all. They don't have the cornerbacks or the defensive backs in general to play man coverage, which you have to do when you go into blitz. To me, it looks pretty simple that the Seahawks just cannot do this. I mean, they were giving up huge explosive plays early in the season. They went away with it to be more conservative. They've had to go back to it because they couldn't create pressure. It kind of feels like they're stuck in no man's land now. I mean, what do you do? I mean, the two don't work. I mean, the Seahawks have a scheme and it relies on, it's quite a simple scheme. Everybody doing their job, pressure with 4. When you can't do any of the things that you want to do because they can't create pressure with 4, and you're scrambling around to everything just doesn't work anymore, and it just creates this really broken defense.
Yeah, I mean, I like what someone had suggested in your comment section, Robin, on your blog. Is they had said something about like just play a bunch of dime. And get a bunch of corners out there and just blitz 4 and see what happens. Maybe every once in a while send a linebacker too, and maybe Carlos Dunlap will help a little bit with that. But yeah, overall my confidence is super shaken on this. I'm a fairly positive guy when it comes to Seahawks, and I'm a bit. This week I got called out, Rob, by a bunch of Bills fans and for being a bit of a homer and a Seahawk like bandwagon guy or whatever. But and it's fair, right? I mean, the reality is I've picked the Seahawks to win every single game because I'm a fan of the Seahawks. And so I get why people would be annoyed by that. But, my confidence level is starting to get to the point where I'm not really positive on the team anymore. I'm getting a little negative on the defense, and I don't know what you can do. I keep saying, well, what if they do this or try that or whatever? And they went out and they've made changes. And I you see them trying, right? I mean, I got to give them credit. They are trying. They are throwing they're not getting home. So they're sending a bunch of people, but they're giving up huge chunk plays and a bunch of yards. And, that I was listening to Brock and Salk and, and they just Brock was saying one time, or I can't remember if it was Brock and Salk, but it was Brock was saying there was one possession where no one ever got touched. And that's just crazy to me. And I didn't even want to go back and watch it just because I don't have the heart to sit through that again. But this is a game that it's make or break time for the season. I mean, it really is. You got to come in and you've got to figure something out. And I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm hoping that there's some Pete Carroll defensive magic that he's got left in his pocket that he can pull out and change, and that we can hopefully see something start to shift. And I mean, we don't need them to be great. We just need them to be average, just be, even if they're just mediocre, and let the offense carry us. That's fine. But we can't be the worst defense in the league. We're just not going to win any more games that way.
I tell you what I'd like to see, and I don't know if you can necessarily do that in this game, Robbie, but I will come back onto that in a second. I'd like to see them just admit defeat on what they've kind of tried to do so far and just say, look, this defense is crap. How bad could it be if you just decide Alton Robinson, you're going to play him as a defensive end and you're going to give him a lot more snaps, and you're going to hope that with his speed that he gives you something a little bit more off the edge? Because there are games where he gets like 5 snaps. And I'm sorry, I don't think Carlos Dunlap is a Leo. They said that he's a Leo and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Carlos Dunlap is a big dude. He's 6'6", he's about 275. He's a classic 5 technique, power end, the role that Jadeveon Clowney was playing last year. I want to see Dunlap on one side, Robinson on the other. And you know what? There's one way to stop teams doing what the Bills did at the weekend, which is we're just going to come out and throw it like 31 out of 34 snaps or something like that. And that is to line up a defensive line to encourage teams to run against you and to try and mask that weakness. Because the Seahawks can't be daring teams to throw the ball on them. They've kind of got to dare them to run. They've got to do that. They've got to they've got to dangle the carrot out there. Run the ball, we dare you. So for me, it means putting Alton Robinson on the edge. It means playing Carlos Dunlap on the other side. And then, do you know what? I'd stick Rasheem Green in at defensive tackle a few times and just sort of say, look, we're going to have him next to Jaron O'Puna. And we're going to, because we anticipate teams are going to throw, so we're going to put a pass rushing front 4. We're going to put a third down line on the field, and we're going to treat it like every down is going to be a pass, which is what Buffalo did. And I'm telling you now, teams will look at that and they'll say, it's a running opportunity. We're going to run. And yeah, do you know what? That's going to be a lot of pressure on Rasheem Green and Alton Robinson to defend the run. But then you've got Bobby flying in. You've just got to make sure everybody's going to be tuned into that. Bobby, KJ, right? Okay, we are going to play this way. Jamal Adams, you've got to be on the alert. If they do run, you've got to fly to the ball. You've got to go and help those guys out, because there's a decent chance you're going to get some second-level penetration, and you've got to be on it, and you've got to tackle, and you've got to wrap up, and you're going to be under a lot of pressure. But do you know what? If that encourages teams to try and run a little bit more, if it means that you can get a bit more pressure early downs, I'm taking that. That's a gamble I will take. And if it doesn't work, well, guess what? Nothing else works. So let's have a try at that. Because if you just roll out what you did last week or the week before or any of the other 6 games came before that, you are going to suffer on defense. That's what I want to see. The reason I don't think it's going to necessarily work in this game, though, Robbie, is because the Rams just do so much, and we've seen it. And, you almost have to play with 2 extra guys on the line of scrimmage. You're kind of going to have to put Jamal Adams and Jordan Brooks up at the line to monitor all that perimeter run stuff, to keep an eye on all of the Goff bootlegs and the play action that the Rams use. They're going to do all of that. And that has been proven now with the Patriots, with the Giants, with the 49ers. That is how you defend this defense. So I'm not sure if you can do the plan I've just talked about in this game. But when you're playing the Cardinals, when you're playing the Eagles, when you're playing the NFC East, I'd like to see a bit of that, what I've talked about.
Yeah, I like that. And plus, I mean, one of the reasons we drafted Jordan Brooks was for his speed, to be able to get to the outside and run and make those tackles when the running back's getting on the outside. So, I mean, I like that idea. It's worth a shot, something we haven't tried before. So, I mean, I'm all down for trying something different, because I can't watch this defense anymore. Just give up yard after yard after yard. It's been awful. And, you start looking at the Rams schedule and you think, okay, they've lost to a really good Bills team. Okay, Bills fans, giving you credit, doubt you're even watching anymore, but you have a good team there. I said it. All right, you have a great team, and but I mean, yeah, they lost to the Niners. They lost to the Dolphins. They barely beat the Giants. I mean, they don't look like a team that's like, world beaters, but then, Sean McVay just knows how to beat the Seahawks. And so, like, I don't know what they can do. You're putting a lot of pressure on Russ. Again, this is going to be a game where you hope that Goff makes a silly throw, or you get a fumble, or something happens and you can get a couple turnovers, and all of a sudden you put a bunch of points up and you're winning by a lot. But you're putting a lot of pressure on Russ to win this football game. And, clearly we've seen it. Aaron Donald he's going to bring it. He's going to come right after us. And, this is a defense that, though I don't think they're the best defense in the league, they can get after the quarterback as well. And Russ is going to have to elevate his game even again. And it's unfortunate for Russ, because I feel like, man, the guy has been playing really well. I know he's had, 2 games where he's made some poor decisions, but I mean, the weight of the world is on his shoulders. He's literally carrying the team. Like, literally, I would like to see them on offense do some of the Sean McVay stuff, do some end arounds, get DK the ball running, like, with an end around or something, get the playmakers the ball quickly, so Russ doesn't have to sit in the pocket and think about it for too long. Like, I'd like to see some quick action. Man, we're missing Chris Carson, because if we could control the clock right now, this is one of those games where I would like to control the clock. I would like to run down and take 8 minutes off a clock and put 7 on the board and force them to have to, like, hurry up and such. But man, I don't know. This is a tough one.
This is a big test for Pete Carroll and his coaching staff, Robbie, because I watched you may well have done as well, a lot of people will have watched the Rams against the 49ers. I think it was a primetime game and a divisional game, so a lot of people will have watched it. Now, when I was watching that, I was amazed at how much of a non-factor Aaron Donald was. A complete non-factor in that game. They just took him out of the game. The plan that the San Francisco 49ers used eliminated Aaron Donald, and I don't think I've seen that ever. I mean, if that's happened before, I can't remember it. I wasn't watching that game. And they really stymied the Rams. And their plan, the 49ers plan, offense, defense, absolutely superb. And that was a bang. All right, so they had Kittle and they had Garoppolo playing in that game. We know that Garoppolo wasn't healthy even playing in that game, because he's on IR now. He lasted a couple more weeks and then he's gone. Whatever the Niners did there, I want to see the Seahawks do something. I want to see the Seahawks come up with a game plan to actually have a good game against the Rams, because it hasn't happened. You play them twice a year. These games are supposed to be nip and tuck. They're supposed to be close. You're supposed to have success against divisional opponents. Heck, the other teams in the West have had success against the Seahawks. So I want to see them actually come out and play the Rams close. And I want to see some success for the Seahawks. I do not want to see a game like we saw in LA at the end of last year, where it was one-way traffic. And, when you look at the game in Seattle, the Rams only won because of a missed field goal right at the end. So I want to see a better performance there. I also want to talk a little bit, Robbie, about the blitzing and how that has sort of been used. See, the thing is, I want, from based on what we've said, that I'd like to see them take a step back from all of the blitzing. But if you're not blitzing, what the hell are you doing with Jamal Adams? What is Jamal Adams' role in this team if you are reining back the blitz? Is it just a case of, well, we're going to be a bit more calculated with the way he does it, we're going to use him slightly differently? Because for me, if I'm seeing a blitz from the Seahawks this weekend, I kind of want it to be Bobby Wagner, very occasionally, running up the middle on a down where you feel comfortable with. The problem with Jamal Adams doing it is it immediately forces you into sort of a nickel situation where you're in a nickel, but you've not got an extra man in coverage. The whole point of having nickel is you've got another man back in coverage. That nickel player is rushing the passer, and it's Jamal Adams. So it takes another player out of the second and third level, and we're getting caught. We're seeing the Seahawks get caught because of that. And when he drops in coverage, he's not, they had him on Stephon Diggs, trying to cover Stephon Diggs at times of the weekend. That is a horrible mismatch. That's not really that much different than seeing one of your linebackers on Stephon Diggs. You do not want that matchup. So they're putting him in bad situations. His weaknesses are being shown up because he isn't a good zone coverage defender. The only seemingly success that he's having at the moment is when he blitzes, but he's not. What have they done? Have they honestly paid 2 first-round picks, a third, and a good starting player in Bradley McDougall to have a blitzing safety? I mean, the plan for Jamal Adams just reminds me of their plan for Jimmy Graham. We're going to get the best pass-catching tight end in the league, try and turn him into a blocker. We're going to trade for Percy Harvin, but we haven't got a clue how to put him into the offense. But he's great at kick returns. It seems to me that every time the Seahawks make a huge trade for a star player, they haven't got the foggiest idea what to do with him, Robbie.
Yeah, 100% they're using him wrong, and we all see it. I mean, he's out of position. He's getting burnt in coverage, and it's frustrating. And fans want to see more, especially when you've given up 2 first rounds, a third, and a player for him. You want to see more out of him, and he's a good football player. He gets after the quarterback, and he's definitely a fired up guy, and he gets people around him amped up. But you want to see him utilized correctly as well. You don't want to see him out of position and doing things that he hadn't done before. Like, yeah, you're right. Why was he covering Stephon Diggs? That shouldn't be it. I don't mind if he's going to cover a tight end or something, but don't put him on Diggs. That didn't make any sense at all. The guy just smoked him many times. And, that's why I kind of like the idea of maybe throwing the dime package out there, maybe take an extra linebacker off the field and put another corner in. And then, you can bring Jamal Adams down to rush if you need to. But yeah, you're still going to see Jamal get after the quarterback, I think. But I mean, if you're going to do that, I would like to see it, like I said earlier, like don't have him start so far 15 yards off the line and then come down after the ball is snapped. That's not going to, that's way too far to run. He's not getting home, basically getting to the line of scrimmage and the ball is out. So he's taking him out of the play completely. So if you're going to do it, make him kind of a Cam Chancellor role, put him up at the line, help him stop the run, but they're not running anyway, so they're throwing. But do something to get him on the line and then send him, or if you're going to send him up there, then send him back immediately. But don't have him covering the best, fastest wide receiver in the league.
I'm increasingly just really confused by the trade, Robbie. What was the plan? I'd love to know what the plan was for Jamal Adams. You've made this trade really close to training camp. I said at the time it felt like a desperation move because they looked at their defense and they didn't see any difference from last year apart from no Jadeveon Clowney. They'd swapped Clowney for Mayowa. We didn't know if Dunbar was going to be with the team or not because of the arrest. And they traded for Jamal Adams. And it seems to me like they just thought, crap, just get a big name. Just get a difference maker. Just get an all-pro player on the team, regardless of the cost. It's ended up costing them an absolute fortune. And the problem with this kind of a player, Robbie, is that we'll see it on Sunday. Who's the biggest weapon in terms of skill position for the Seahawks? It's DK Metcalf. And the Rams are going to say to Jalen Ramsey, your job is probably to keep an eye on DK Metcalf. Get in his face, wind him up, get him riled up, make him lose his cool, limit the damage there. And there is a relatively good chance that Jalen Ramsey will win that matchup because he is an elite player, as is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf could win the matchup. He beat Stephon Gilmore in that matchup in week 2. Not saying that it's a foregone conclusion that Ramsey wins, but he might. That's the benefit of having a great corner. For the Texans, they traded a couple of first-round picks for Larry Tunsil. If he's healthy, he plays every single snap protecting Deshaun Watson. That is a vital role. Given whichever scrub they had playing there before. From the Seahawks' point of view, Jamal Adams only impacts the plays where he has a positive play, Robbie. So if he gets a sack, great. He gets a sack. But down to down, his position, he's not taking away a side of the field. He's not rushing the passer every down. He's not drawing attention in terms of protection. You don't have to be wary of where he is, like a Joey Bosa or an Aaron Donald or somebody like Myles Garrett. He's not, like I say, shutting down your top receiver on once, or like doing what Sherman did and taking away a whole side of the field, where someone as storied as Aaron Rodgers will not throw his direction because of Richard Sherman's quality. For this price, I just want a bit more than a blitzing safety. And I don't blame Jamal Adams for this. I'm blaming the Seahawks for making this trade trading as much as they did, twice as much, more than Minka Fitzpatrick went to Pittsburgh, seemingly because they had to do something and they were bent over a barrel by the Jets and told, well, if you want him that badly, you're going to pay this. And they went, okay, have it. And now we're left with this situation where I think they've got 8 games to justify this trade. I think they've got 8 games to find a role for Jamal, get him fit around this defense or build the defense around him to justify this cost. And if they can't do it, then they've got a big decision to make, because the way that he's played in 4 games, yes, it's 4 games. I will give him a chance. I'm not writing him off. I'm not saying they should trade him. I'm just saying, Robbie, from what I've seen so far, 2 first-round picks, a third and a player, and potentially $18 million contract, it's not going to be less than 15. Buda Baker's is 15. So the very least it's going to be 16. Could be 17, could be 18, could be 19, could be 20. We've seen these trades when they're made and there's no contracts in the oven, you end up paying well over the odds. If they don't get him settled into a role where he's producing at a high level between now and the end of the season, they are going to have to make they've got to be honest about it, and they've got to make a difficult call, because this is not worth it. This is not worth the picks and the money they have spent. And right now, I don't know what tangible benefit they're getting from him starting rather than Bradley McDougall.
Yeah, so listen, I mean, when we made the Jamal Adams trade, I defended it. I mean, I know a lot of people right out the gate were like, that's too much. And I was like, I think John Snyder's ahead of the game. Like, I really did. I believed that John Snyder was ahead of the game. I was like, we don't know college football is even going to be played. If it is, it's going to be a couple games here and there, the whole COVID thing. And I hate to use COVID as a reason or excuse, but I honestly believe that they just didn't think college football was going to be played. Like, the way it was going, things just didn't appear that it was going to be played. So I think in their mind, they were thinking, okay, so honestly, it's a first round the following year when college football is played. This year is going to be kind of a wash in the draft. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? So they were convinced maybe that that's why. Now that college football has been played and that people are playing and the games are going and you're seeing talent and you're starting to think, well, crap, now you legitimately gave up a first and a third and another first and another player. And now you're thinking, well, why did they do this? When, especially, it doesn't help that he's been hurt, right? The best thing he could have done was stay healthy and been on the field for us. Like, we need him there. I mean, we can, even if he's given up a bunch of yards, at least we can figure out like did we make a mistake originally or what? And I mean, he's only played 4 games with us. You're right. These next 8 games they're crucial. They're absolutely crucial for what we're going to do this offseason, because we have to decide, are we going to pay this guy? Are we going to trade this guy? What are we going to do? And if you look at it, we need our picks, right? I mean, I know John Snyder can magically turn picks into whatever, but I mean, you don't have that first. No one's going to give up a first for Bobby. Like, I keep seeing people post like, oh, we could trade Bobby and his big salary. I mean, Bobby's 30. He's going to be 31. Then no one's going to trade for a 31-year-old linebacker, like just a middle linebacker. It's not going to happen. Plus, like, I don't even know if they want to trade Bobby. Like, he's part of that core that they want to keep in Seattle. And so I just don't think that's realistic. I think the highest you can get for Bobby's maybe a third if you're lucky. And I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. So going into the draft this year, we have a lot of questions to be answered. I was so pumped about the Quentin Dunbar trade, because last year he was ranked number 2 in PFF's rankings, and that he was a guy who gets interceptions. And what did we need? We needed not a Shaquille Griffin, because he wasn't getting the interceptions. We needed a guy to take Trey Flowers' spot, to get the ball, to attack the football, get interceptions, and go after it. So, I mean, giving up a 5th for him, it seemed like a steal. Like, at the time, I remember going into the season, I was like, our secondary is going to be the best secondary. It's going to be so good. Like, you look at Diggs, you look at, Jamal Adams, Shaq coming off a Pro Bowl season, and then you add Quentin Dunbar, and then if you needed to, you had Trey Flowers still at the bench. Like, I felt like this was a good core secondary, and for whatever reason, they are not meshing together. For whatever reason, they are not playing well. And I'm going to give credit. Trey Flowers, for the last 3 or 4 games, has played pretty good football, and he's playing way better than Quentin Dunbar. And so I think he should be starting on the opposite side and let him, because we're going to need corners next year. Shaq's going into this is his final year. Quentin Dunbar's in his final year. We still have Trey under contract, so we need these guys to step up and make some of the decisions for us. Like, we don't need to make these decisions, but like John Snyder and them, hopefully some of these guys step up and make the decision for them.
So Quentin Dunbar, number 2 via PFF last year. This year, 97. 97th ranked cornerback out of 116, which is remarkable. His grade, incidentally, is very similar to Benson Mayowa's, who is 104th out of 111 defensive ends. So, do you know, the worst thing about it, Robbie, is that it was so predictable. It was everything that has happened on this defense has been so predictable. We talked about it from March, April, May, June, July. This has been coming all the way through. They couldn't have done a worse job this offseason putting together this defense. And as you mentioned, they're going to have a whole host of needs coming up this offseason. They don't have any picks, which is why they've got to be brutally honest about Jamal Adams trade. And if they have to, bite the bullet and just try and get a first back, if someone will give them that, then they might have to do it in order just to save money. Listen, you're probably not going to draft a player as good as Jamal Adams. That's the problem. But, can you afford to have a $20 million blitzer on your roster if he doesn't fit your scheme? I mean, the whole point of the Pete Carroll defense was its simplicity, allowed them to play so fast. Cam Chancellor didn't blitz. He had 2 sacks in his whole Seahawks career. They never asked him to do any of the stuff they're asking Jamal Adams to do. And they're using Jamal Adams to prop up a crap D-line because they botched rebuilding that during the offseason. So none of this is working. It's obvious that why it's so broken. This isn't the Seahawks scheme. This isn't what they try to do. They're sort of going week to week trying to work this out because they can't play their scheme. And I'm sorry, but the idea that they would go from what they did against Buffalo last week to suddenly flying into the playoffs, playing better than this. Look, the scheme's no good either. The coaches deserve a lot of responsibility. As I say, Kyle Shanahan has got the Niners to 4 wins with practically a whole team missing, with a whole team on injured reserve, and he's got them he had them at 500. Okay, Sean McVay has got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff as his quarterback. The Seahawks have got a world-class quarterback, one of the best that has ever played, and the coaches do not seem capable of elevating and developing players and selecting the right players and signing the right players to put the pieces around him to be a proper contender. And it feels like history just repeats year after year after year. Someone said on the blog, Robbie, earlier today, I'm confident that they'll sort out their issues in the offseason and next year. I was like, no, I cannot have that faith anymore. This was supposed to be the offseason where they sorted out their issues. They had $50 million to spend. They had all these picks. They've used their next 2 first-round picks already on Jamal Adams. This was supposed to be the year. And look what we're left with. This abject joke of a defense. And another thing that in terms of history is repeating, Robbie, why is everybody so injured every year? Why is it year to year, the Seahawks injury report is enormous? I'm looking at it, the injury report for Wednesday. Did not practice Chris Carson, Ethan Posick, Quentin Dunbar, Benson Mayowa, Shaquille Griffin, Carlos Hyde, Brian Monet, KJ Wright, limited, Hugo Amadi, Dwayne Brown, Greg Olson, Mike Yapati. And that's with, DK and Tyler and guys who usually have a day off on Wednesday, not having their day off this week. And then you look at the Rams. Here's the Rams list in comparison. Did not participate. Andrew Whitworth, not injury related, so a veteran rest day. David Edwards, Darrell Henderson. Limited, Cooper Kupp. That's it. There's only 3 injured players. And every single year, the Seahawks have this huge injury list. And we sit here going, those darn injuries got the Seahawks again. Maybe there's a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to wonder if it's the strength and conditioning coaches that they.
But people say strength and conditioning. They change the strength and conditioning coach. Right? Part of me think there has to be a reason for this. I don't know. Is it the style? Is it the way that they play? Is it the way that is there something else they're doing? It's very easy to say the strength and conditioning coaches. They could just be really unlucky. Let's be honest. They could just be really, really unlucky every single year. That's a possibility. But I look at it and I think every year they've got this army of injuries.
Sure, and I mean it could be the way they practice too. I mean, Pete they say that they practice just as hard as they play, and he gets it hyped up with the music going and the DJ's going and people come in and this is how they go and they play hard, and maybe they're just going too hard. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point. But yeah, you're right. There's got to be a reason, and it's most frustrating when we start seeing it in our running backs. I feel like we're in the same positions we were last year. Carson's out, Hyde's out. Now we're in a situation where man, call up Marshawn again. Let's see what we got. Because clearly they don't trust DJ Dallas, and he was on the injury report too. He didn't practice or something. I don't know, earlier this week or something. And Travis Homer, just clearly you got to stop giving him the football. And maybe screen passes was fine, but I'm tired of seeing him run the rock. And then who knows when Penny's supposed to be back. So it's just frustrating that we're in the same scenario that we were last year.
Yeah, it is. And, and the other thing, Robbie, that it reminds me of last year, I mean, they were 6-2 last year. It just feels like, I feel like deja vu. I feel like we've wasted a whole year of our lives just watching the same stuff again. And look, there's a base number of wins you are always going to get with a player like Russell Wilson on your roster. He is so good that you're never going to have a 6-10 with a healthy Russell Wilson. You're never going to have a 4-12. That's just not, the roster could be even worse than this. And he will elevate the team like all good quarterbacks do at any level of football. I mean, look at BYU right now. I guarantee that BYU will not look as good next year when Zach Wilson's in the NFL. Zach Wilson is elevating that team. Look what Paxton Lynch did for Memphis. Look at all the great Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence misses a couple of games. All of a sudden, Clemson look human after all. A good quarterback elevates the team. Russell Wilson is elevated. So when I hear all these people, and I'm going to come on to this as well, I need to mention this before we finish, Robbie. When I hear people shouting on Twitter, 6-2, 6-2, I'm thinking, you might as well just shout, Russell Wilson's great. Because you are always going to have a certain number of wins with Russell Wilson. The key is, as I've said, Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo has been to a Super Bowl. Carson Palmer and Bruce Arians with his red face and the Cardinals have been to the NFC Championship all in the time that the Seahawks have not. So the Seahawks have a duty to get Russell Wilson to the Super Bowl, and he will get you there. He's not going to be the reason why you don't get there. If you get in the playoffs with a supporting cast and the proper coaching and the proper preparation and organization and a proper football team, he will get this team to the Super Bowl and he will win you titles. He can do it in the same way that Patrick Mahomes did it for Kansas City last year. He will do it. He will deliver. He's a born winner. He will deliver for this team. The problem is every year is the Seahawks don't do enough to support him. They can't play the complementary football, despite the fact that it's such an aspect of Carroll's philosophy, of closing the circle. The coaching is just not good enough. They're not elevated. I mean, you've got a defensive head coach, Robbie. When's the last time they truly elevated a defensive player well beyond his means and got every drop out of that player? When's the last time that you saw, even Seattle's top players playing at a very highest level? I mean, we're talking years now. I watched a game from the 2013 season the other day, and it's unrecognizable. I mean, obviously, it's a much more talented defense. It's a different time. Of course, you're not going to expect the LOB again. But just the manner, the aggressiveness, the attitude, the speed, the physicality, the scheme, everything about it on point. And they're just an utter shambles at the moment. And you can be 6-2, you can be 7-2, you could be 6-3. If they lose this game at the weekend, they could be third in the NFC West with Russell Wilson having an MVP caliber season. How can you be third in the NFC West if you lose this game and have Wilson playing the way he is? And if I'm Russell Wilson, listen, he's very, very good. Because when he gets on a podium, you'd never tell, would you? Any level of dissatisfaction. I'm telling you now, if they blow another game this weekend and they're going to 6-3, he's going to be seething inside. Because this week, for the first time this season, he is not the MVP favorite. It's Patrick Mahomes. And he can see that slipping away because he has to prop this team up.
Yeah, I just want to step back to one more thing. You said something about attitude and such with the LOB and such, and I think maybe that's another reason why they went out and traded for Jamal Adams, because he does have that kind of brash personality and attitude that he plays with, kind of a ferociousness. But just
Is it legit?
That I don't know. I
Is
don't
it
know.
legit?
Maybe it seems like legit. I mean, he seems like he's. I mean, this is not the same, but I mean, that guy is fired up all the time. I mean, even when he's not playing, he's wearing a Seahawks helmet, watching the game, getting all amped up. He just seems like a kind of the guy that he loves the game and wants to. He seems fired up and amped up. I mean, I remember when he got burnt by Stephon Diggs. He got burnt and got in Diggs' face and started clapping and was like, "Oh, good job," or whatever. I mean, at least he has like an attitude and something. Granted, he should have just shut the hell up because he got burnt really bad on the play, but at least he's got some sort of attitude. And I'm just saying, like, maybe that's why another reason why they went out to get him is hopefully to get some of that, develop some of that attitude. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah, but really, this game. Let's talk about the game for a second, because when it comes down to it, Sean McVay is going to pick this defense apart. There's just no way around it. I'm just going to give you my prediction right now. I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be close. I do think that the Seahawks will be able to hang. I think Russell is going to want to try to will this team to win, and I think he's going to have to do a lot to get away from Aaron Donald. And I don't think we're going to be able to stop that guy. But I think he's going to try his hardest to win. I think it's going to be like a 37-31 football game, but it's going to go to the Rams. I think the Rams are going to take it, and this is going to be a game where we're going to come back next week and we're going to be talking about the same thing, that the defense is just absolutely shattered, and we're going to be wondering where we go next.
I think if that happens, Robbie, the Pete Carroll is going to have to do something. I really do. You cannot keep just turning up week after week and saying we're going to get better. We've got to get better. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Eventually, it's just becoming empty words. And if they lose to a scoreline like you're suggesting again, which sounds like a horrible defensive performance once more, you can't be so loyal as to cost your team. And it's clear that Ken Norton is not elevating this defense. Pete Carroll isn't either, but Pete Carroll's not going to fire himself. So you've got to do something. And if that means you have to go back and beg Chris Richard to come back, or if you have to find anyone on your staff currently who could be a defensive coordinator, or if you just have to promote someone and Pete has to double down and spend a little less time talking about the things that Pete talks about and spend a bit more time, being completely hands-on, play calling, doing everything with the defense, so be it. I mean, the Ravens fired a coordinator when they were 9-4 in 2012. They won the Super Bowl. They probably wouldn't have won the Super Bowl if they didn't fire Cam Cameron. I don't think the Seahawks are winning a Super Bowl with the defense playing it the way it is. So sometimes you've got to bite the bullet. I want to mention a couple of quick things, Robbie, before I give my prediction. Why are they paying Greg Olsen $7 million and Jacob Hollister $3 million? I mean, have you got any? I'm struggling. Have you got any ideas?
I have no answer for that. I mean, I was confused when they gave Hollister a second round tender to begin with. I know he was, Russ trusted him last year and, with the injuries that we had, but then, you go pay Greg Olsen $7 million and then you draft 2 tight ends, who now one of them is a DN, but you go out and you do that and it's very confusing. And I still don't know why they didn't. I don't care what the offer was. You probably should have let Hollister go, at the trade deadline. If it was a 6th round pick, whatever. I mean, get something for him. If not, we're just going to lose him anyways. And why paying him $3 million doesn't make any sense. And I can kind of understand the Greg Olsen signing. I don't understand the price. The $7 million seems like a bit expensive, but he's a veteran presence. He seemed like maybe he could come in and help this offense. He blocks and he catches the football, right? He does both things that we were hoping. And I think originally a lot of people were hoping that he would be, oh my gosh, Zach Miller. Thank you. People were going to think that he'd be a kind of a Zach Miller type of player, and it's just not panning out. I don't know if they're just not using him right either or what, but yeah, paying $10 million for tight ends doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
I think he's on pace for like 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's $7 million. It's a lot of money. And what I kind of find surprising, Robbie, is that the Seahawks are very willing to turn around to defensive linemen and go, well, if you're not willing to accept what we're offering, then we're just going to move on and we'll get somebody else and we'll pay Benson Mayo $3 million and that's all we're going to do. And then we'll trade up for an injured defensive end and we'll call it a day. Why have that mentality there and then be like, oh crap, we've got to outbid the Washington team and Buffalo to get Greg Olsen. Here's $7 million, Greg. You know, for a guy who was pondering retirement, and like I say, he's on for about 340 yards and a couple of touchdowns. He's had 329 offensive snaps. That is in comparison to Will Disley 246 and Jacob Hollister's 128. It's not just the statistics where he's struggling. His PFF grade is 61.3, which is in the same kind of range as Penny Hart's at the moment. He's ranked 43 out of 67 for tight ends.
Keep in mind one thing, Rob. Just keep in mind one thing too. Russell Wilson did call
Yes.
for superstars early on, and Greg Olsen has been a superstar in this league, right? He's been a really good tight end, and so I think that might have been one way to kind of help appease Russ. Just another
Possibly
idea.
so. I think you're probably right. In fact, I think that Russell Wilson probably said, "I want Greg Olsen," and they went and got Greg Olsen. But Russell Wilson probably wanted a defense as well, and the Scrimpton save there. And sometimes you're just going to go, "No, Russ, you know, we'll sort you out. Don't worry." I mean, I'm sure Russell Wilson would have been just as equally pleased if they'd spent that $7 million on the defensive line and then gone and drafted one of the fantastic receivers who were in the draft, like a Chase Claypool.
Claiborne, yeah, exactly.
Who we talked about, or even moved up a little bit and got Justin Jefferson or Brandon Ayuk, which is what the Niners did. They traded up a little bit, got Brandon Ayuk or Jalen Reagor. You know, all these players that we talked about all the time, you know, building up to the draft. It's not like we're saying in hindsight, oh, they should have traded up for Justin Jefferson. We talked about Justin Jefferson. We talked about Chase Claypool. You know, there was all these receivers who were there. They could have traded up. They could have drafted Claypool where they were. You know, I'm sure Russ would have been just as happy with that. And if he'd got a better defense. And look, Hollister and Disley are grading very well via PFF. You could make a case that Olsen should be taking a seat on the bench, and Disley and Hollister should be the two starting tight ends. So that's a concert. And the other thing, Robbie, look, again, he's been injured. I'm not judging him already, but it is something I wanted to ask you about. Are we seeing enough from Jordan Brooks? He's flashed a bit of speed here and there to make you think, wow, I can see why they spent a first-round pick on another linebacker.
I don't know if I could justify another first-round pick on a linebacker, but I definitely see the talent is there. I've seen him play pretty well, and he's made a couple of plays where you can say, like, okay, I can see why. I still think he's young. You know, he's just a young player, and he's gonna develop into his own. And I think we won't really see the benefits probably this year. You know, he'll make a couple splash plays or whatever, but I think it's gonna be next year, the year after, that we're gonna be like, okay, this guy's a really good football player. But you're right.
I have an issue with that.
Right, I agree.
It's
right.
like
I mean,
we're going to spend a first-round pick on a linebacker, and maybe by 2022 he'll be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not ideal. Like, especially for where the team is at. Like, we're not building for 2022. We're building for right now. Like, we needed to pick players that can help us now.
And also, you know, and again, I don't want to. Hindsight is a marvelous thing. And I think sometimes when you do stuff like this, I don't tend to do this a lot, you know, and especially when a lot of people have done it with Malik McDowell, and I have tried to veer away from that and not go down that path. But it seemed pretty clear to me, Robbie, that the best value late in the first round was receiver, running back, and offensive line. And I did not see the sense in drafting a linebacker to replace KJ Wright one day, compared to, you know, snubbing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for example, and then saying we're going to spend $3 million on Carlos Hyde. That to me is another situation where you're throwing money at a situation, you're fighting the draft a little bit, and if you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now, I think your running game wouldn't have suffered the last 2 weeks. I think that you would have an option so that Chris Carson, I keep getting the names muddled up. It's because everyone's name begins with C. Chris Carson and Carlos. Carson's injured again. He's missed the last 2 games. You've got a big decision to make, because Big Chris is a great player, but you've got a big decision to make in the offseason. But it's even bigger decision because your choices are essentially let him walk and rely on Rashad Penny, and who knows what kind of situation he's in right now. And I don't think Rashad Penny's shown enough to want being your top starting running back. Or you have to go and find another running back from somewhere. And the last time the Seahawks were in that situation, they ended up with Eddie Lacy. So if you'd have drafted Carlos Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is a nightmare. I'm having an absolute nightmare with these running back names. If you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, then you could, with some confidence, go, well, we've got Clyde. You know, we don't have to worry about it as much. The situation is pretty fluid, and you've saved yourself money on Carlos Hyde, which could have gone towards the D-line in the same way that Greg Olsen could have done. Look, again, it's hindsight, Robbie, but it just seems to me like everything just seemed, wherever you thought they were going to ying, the Seahawks yang, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I think they might have been a little gun shy as well as drafting another running back in the first round. You know, they did it with Penny. So my guess is they were probably a little gun shy doing another running back in the first round. But I mean, it doesn't really help us in this scenario, right? In this situation, I'd love to have him on our team. He would help us. I mean, in the passing game, he'd help us all over. So super frustrating. You're right. You can look back at hindsight and you know, you can go back as far as Malik McDowell and probably even further, but it's frustrating to be in the same situation. And, you know, we've talked about this over and over, and even on your blog, we talk about this, like, you know, the players that we all want, or we all target, or we have an eye for, and then out of nowhere, Jordan Brooks, someone that we've never talked about, that we've like, I mean, I didn't study the guy at all. So I remember when the pick happened, I was like, who? Like, I had to go out and like look at the guy and like look it up. And then, you know, again, I'm not trying to knock the guy, but like, I think he's going to be a good football player, but he's not what we need at this point in time.
Yeah, a running hit linebacker. Again, when I just think about it, I actually watched him before the draft and just got bored and turned it off. And I thought, well, they're not going to draft a linebacker in the first round anyway, or he wasn't even projected to go in the first round. They're not going to draft him in like the first 3 rounds. So I'm not going to watch the rest of this game. I'm a bit bored. So I'll focus on players that it's better spending my limited time on. And then they go and draft him. And I watch him and go, yeah, okay, he does that, he does this, and he does that. So what? So what? Why? You know, I hope he has a great game on Sunday and he rams these words down my throat. I hope that they drafted him particularly just to play the Rams, and he can play off one side and they can maybe put Jamal Adams on the other. And we can come back on Sunday, Robbie, and we can have a chat and go, oh, look, that's why they traded and drafted that guy. Because it's to play the Rams, and it's worked. And as I said before the Niners game, nothing would give me more pleasure but to come out and say I was completely wrong. Well done to the Seahawks. I want the Seahawks to win so badly. I don't want to come and have podcasts like this. If we'd have done this podcast any other year in the previous 10 years of this Carroll era, Robbie, it would have just been flowers and sunshine. People would have been sending us messages going, you're far too positive. Stop it. It's sickly sweet. But I feel like we have to have this conversation because it warrants this kind of a conversation. If people think I'm being overly negative, because obviously I'm much more negative than you are, Robbie. You will often find a glimmer of hope when there only appears to be darkness. But I think it's warranted, and I think, you know, somebody has to do it. Somebody has to talk straight. In fairness to Brock and Salt, they do it on their podcast, and they did this week. I joked after the game last weekend, I don't want to hear on the Pete Carroll show a question about how great DK Metcalf was. I was driving home from work. I had it on the radio. And I think the second to last question was, Pete, just how good is DK Metcalf? And I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I said that as a joke, you know, and it actually came on. And then the last question was, you know, Danny O'Neill was there, and he's going, Pete, I just want to say, I'm just so inspired by the fact that you found your calling as a coach. And I think it's really cool that you've signed a contract extension. And I guess what I'm saying is that I'm so inspired, so happy for you, Pete, that you've got this contract and you're carrying on and that you've done it in your way. And I'm so inspired and it's so cool. And I'm sat there thinking, they had one of the worst losses of the Pete Carroll era yesterday. This is not appropriate. Ask a difficult question.
How bad was Danny this week?
It's that fawning, gushing praise of Carroll. It's like there's a time and a place, man. You know, if this is not it. And then the next day people were going, I'm really concerned about the defense, and I'm not sure about this. And I think maybe Ken Norton's, you know, he's not getting it. And Danny's response was to yell at them on Twitter and say, fire everyone, and 6-2. And then he went on the radio and did it. And I just thought, what is this? And while ever that is what the broadcasters are putting out there, I kind of feel like, look, let's be real about the Seahawks. Let's have a proper conversation about where this team is. Let's not wait until January, until everything's finished out. Let's have it now. Well, there's actually something that can be done about it. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, if people wonder why I've talked about the topics that I have, I think these are the relevant topics, Robbie. We could sit here and say how great Dwayne Brown's playing. We could sit here and talk about how great DK Metcalf is and how good Russell Wilson is. It's boring. Everybody knows all of this stuff. They're great. They're good enough to win you a Super Bowl. There's a lot of other things that are going to prevent them from winning a Super Bowl, and they're the things we have to talk about, because this has to be the aim for this team, to get to the Super Bowl and try and win the darn thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I was trying to say, like, how bad was Danny O'Neill this week? I normally like Danny too. This week he felt weird. When I was listening to him, I was just like, oh, where are you going, man? Just awful this week. Attacking people, even using their names, like on his broadcast. He was dropping their names. It's just weird.
There's this guy called Brandon who sent me a tweet. You'll never guess what he said. He said, Seahawks defense isn't very good. What a loser.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, he's probably not even listening anyways. So, come on, dude. That was terrible. All right, Rob. Prediction time. Give me your prediction, because you haven't given me yet. Who do you got?
Okay.
Who do you got winning?
It won't be a surprise to anybody that I'm joining you in predicting a Rams win. The Seahawks consistently give up about 30-odd points against the Rams. It will be so Seahawks if this is the year. Maybe this is it. This is 2020 in a nutshell, Robbie. They'll hold the Rams to 6 points. You know, like they've given up an average of like 35 points against the Rams in the last 6 games. And you know what? It'll be a 13-6 nail biter in favor of the Seahawks. You can just see it, can't you? This is 2020, man. This is what's going to happen. Maybe I should just go for that like a genius on Sunday when it happens. No, I'm not going to go for that. I cannot, as tempting as that is to go for that kind of just bizarre world prediction. I'm going to, I think the Seahawks are going to lose. I think it's going to be a comfortable loss. I think the Rams will get about 35. And I think the Seahawks will put so much pressure on Russell that he will score, he will get his points, but I could see it being like a 35-22, something like that, where they're just completely chasing the game from the get-go. A bit like we saw on Sunday, but the Bills didn't have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and LA do. So I can't see it being as close, and I'm very fearful of this game. And I'm telling you, Robbie, I think things turned a little bit this week amongst the fans. I noticed that there was a lot more criticism. Anything the Seahawks tweeted out was met with just a barrage of negativity about Ken Norton and the defense. I think fans are getting to a point now where they've had enough. And I think if the Seahawks get blown out in LA, I think that will multiply. And I think there will be, for the first time probably ever, there'll be a very serious pressure on Pete Carroll from the fan base to get this sorted, and a lot of unhappiness. And I think the timing couldn't be worse than him having just signed a new contract, because he isn't going anywhere. Pete Carroll's going to be here until the club is sold in 3, 4, 5 years' time. He's absolutely not going anywhere. There's no danger of that. But it's just aesthetics are bad. When you've got a new contract, long-term contract sorted, you've got the worst defense in the league, and he's a defensive-minded head coach. You know, I'm telling you, Sean McVay will never have the worst offense in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan will never have the worst offense in the NFL. And Cliff Kingsbury will never have the worst offense in the NFL. So it's unacceptable that the Seahawks have, if it's not the worst, one of the worst, and it's going to be historically bad in a number of categories. That is not acceptable. And it shouldn't be acceptable to anybody.
And you look at the players that we have, too, and you think that it should be a good defense. I mean, it really should. I mean, yeah, I know our D-line is questionable, but, like, everything else, KJ, Bobby, Diggs, Jamal Adams, Quentin Dunbar, Shaq, you've got all these guys, and you think Carlos Dunlap now, and like you've got the makings of a team that should be really good. So it does fall on the coaching. It does fall on how they're scheming. And I heard Pete say this week, oh, it's not on the coaches. It's the players are not doing what they were supposed to do. Well, then that comes on you, man. Like that comes on the coaches for not doing their job of getting them ready to get in the right position. And I just didn't understand that thought process. And yeah, you're right. It's going to come down to they're going to have to make a decision. If they get blown out this week, there's going to be some tough tough conversations, and Pete's going to have to answer that. Like, Ken Norton might not last this week if that's the case, and he's going to have to do something else. And I think Pete's too loyal, though. I really do. I just think no matter what happens this season, we won't see any changes. It'll be in the off season is when he'll make a change, and that's unfortunate, but I think that's the realistic situation of Pete Carroll. And we all know that he's just super loyal to his team, to his guys, and I just don't think he'd make an in-season change, especially not if I think he'd be trying to look at the positive side and the bright things, like, well, we are 6-3 or whatever, and see, like, he's trying to look at the positive outcome and not see all the negative, and trying to hope for the best, always having that positive mindset and compete.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that all of the time, except for now. I think it's just too bad. And I think you're absolutely spot on when you say there are too many good players on this defense for it to be as bad as this. You could pick through any team. I look at the Colts, for example, offensive-minded head coach, an offense that fluctuates, Robbie. It's hit and miss, have some really bad days. But then other times, it kind of looks passable. And the Colts are what they are. They're 5-3, and they're kind of muddling along as a bit of an also-ran team. And maybe they'll get the playoffs, maybe they won't. Whatever. Until they get the quarterback, they're not going to be a massive contender. But it's not a liability all the time. And that's because they've got just enough on offense. Quentin Nelson, experienced quarterback, a few good running backs, good receivers, tight ends, good plan, scheming. It can be okay. It's not acceptable for a team with Wagner and Wright and Dunlap and Diggs and Adams and all the rest to be as bad as this, to the investment that it's had to be as bad as this. And that, if it carries on, that he has no choice. Pete Carroll has no choice. Can be as loyal as he wants. If Ken Norton's, I'm convinced Ken Norton will see the writing on the wall anyway, Robbie. He might even walk before he's pushed, for all I know, because I don't think he wants to suffer the consequences anyway. And it's getting embarrassing now. It's just so bad. But it's a development program. Pete's always said it's a developmental program. Back in the day, they were developing late round corners and safeties and receivers and third round quarterback, and built in such an amazing way, turning Marshawn Lynch's life and career around, finding something from Chris Clemens, a developmental program. There is zero evidence that it is still a developmental program. They're not developing any coaches. They're not developing any players. They're reliant on this great big mask that is Russell Wilson that covers 1,000 warts. And I hope that in a few days' time, Robbie, I am sat here with egg all over my face, and that they produce a masterclass against the Rams and propel themselves forwards, beat the Cardinals on Thursday Night Football, go and give the NFC East a good stuffing, get into the playoffs as the top seed, and deliver what we all want. But off the back of that Sunday performance, my confidence has never been lower in this team since Russell Wilson was here.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm on the same page, unfortunately. And you're right. I'm kind of a guy who likes to try to see the positive sides of things. And I can see some things like even this week, there was I had a moment where I was listening to, again, I think Brock said something about 2015 or 16, we had the worst run defense in the league. And then after 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden something happened, we flipped a switch, and then all of a sudden we just got really good at stopping the run. And I'm hoping that this is kind of the same thing. And that's kind of, if I had a positive, that would be kind of what I'm hoping to hang my hat on. But yeah, I'm at an all-time low with my positivity on this team. The defense is just not very good, and I do think it's the scheme, and I think we have a lot of good players that can help this football team on the defensive side, and we just need to utilize them correctly. And I'd like to see us build around Jamal Adams and make the trade. Be like, man, we ended up getting a steal out of that, and not the other way around. Right now, it just doesn't look like it's going to be that way, because I really like Jamal Adams. I really do. I was excited to get him. He gave us something to talk about, gave me something just to be excited about, and, got us off Jadeveon Clowney, because I was just over it. But man, at the end of the day, it's like you start looking back and it's just frustrating how it's transpired. So going forward, hopefully they can turn it around. But I'm at a point now, Rob, where I agree. I worry that we're going to lose this game badly to the Rams, and then I they're coming off a bye too, so they have they're coming off a bye and they've got plenty of time to plan for us. So that's always frustrating. And then we're right back Thursday Night Football against a Cardinals team that we didn't look very good against. We had no answer for stopping them. So could be the same scenario over and over.
Yeah, just a final point to finish with this, Robbie, and I'd be interested in your views as well on this. Can we officially, please, retire the term, we all we got, we all we need, right? I do not need to see Jamal Adams tweeting that out after that Buffalo game. That was a phrase created by Big Red Bryant in 2010 when the Seahawks were basically, what's it called when you have a new team? When they start a new team, new franchise. What's the word I'm looking for, Robbie? Help me out here. Expansion franchise. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's like they had an expansion franchise roster. They were absolutely awful. And Big Red's there, and his big booming voice, like a 5th round defensive tackle. We all we got, we all we need. And, when it became a message for a team of, misfits to get to the playoffs somehow and beat the defending champion Saints. And from there, you had people like Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner and, all this, Marshawn. It was, we all we got, we all, nobody gives us a chance. Us against the world. We're going to go out there and smack the world in the face. And, they're going to have to deal with us. Brash, attitude, confidence. It fit perfectly. And even as that team was becoming a giant, a juggernaut, I can remember watching when they'd won the Super Bowl in the locker room and they've got the trophy and they're all in there, Robbie. And Big Red just shouts, we all we got. And it was like this. That was like the crowning moment of that phrase, meaning everything that they'd gone through from being just useless in 2010 and just nobody's coming together, starting something. And that moment when they all had the success at the end and they were still saying that phrase, that band of brothers. It's gone. Jamal, you cost 2 first-round picks and you're a multimillionaire and you're playing like crap, the whole of you. We all we got, we all we need does not count here. This defense is a big, expensive, rich mess. You don't get to say, we all we got, we all we need. There's no attitude. There's no chip on the shoulder. There's no band of brothers, cast of characters, bunch of misfits. It's an expensive, costly, loaded with first-round picks defense, and it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I love that phrase though. I really do. I love it. And I remember it. And I do, it makes me emotional because I miss it. I miss that band of brothers and that attitude and us against the world. And I remember the interview with Sherman Browner and Cam and Earl, and they were just pissy, they were just mad at the world and who cares what anybody thinks, and we're just going to go out and we're going to punch you in the face. And I miss that. And listen, Jamal, if you're going to say it, then mean it. Know what it means and mean it, and get the guys to surround you and make the plays. Don't play like crap and then come out and say, we all got what you need. Because it means nothing if you do that. I would prefer they just come up with a different phrase, because that is something that I feel is like sacred to Seattle now. But he shouldn't be saying it. He shouldn't. But if he's going to, back it up.
Yeah,
understand what it means. Call Red Bryant, call Brandon Meebane, call those guys and be like, hey, tell me about this, and then use it. Don't just say, that's a saying that Seattle has, so I can say this. And no, you're not the LLB 2.0 or whatever. This is not you.
It's like imagine if it's like the Jets saying it. I mean, it just doesn't mean anything. They had a drive on Sunday where they didn't hit a single person, Robbie, on the whole drive. They had a drive where they had 5 consecutive first downs. The only thing that stopped them was the fact the end zone got in the way. It's like you can't say that. They came out with such low energy against Buffalo. The scheme was rubbish. The players played badly. It was the end. There was no energy there. was no, come on, we've had this game against the Niners. Let's go and prove that the defense is back, that we're moving in the right direction. There was nothing. They kind of just sauntered out there on the kickoff return to start again. Oh, give up a couple of quick touchdowns. It's 14-0. Oh, wake up, everybody. No, you don't get to use that phrase while you're playing like you do in Buffalo. And when I saw Jamal Adams using that phrase, I was like, stop it. No, you don't get to use it, Jamal. You don't get to use it. So that's it.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So I've got to say, you can use it if you hold them to 6 points, as I mentioned earlier, on Sunday. Till then, put it back. It's not yours. Right then, we'll leave it there. I hope that helped, that podcast. I have no idea how it's going to go down, Robbie. I'm already thinking of the comments.
Yeah,
it's
people
there.
are not going to be happy.
We're not going back now. It's done.
Nope. It is
probably the longest one we've done. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
And the Seahawks defense is what it is. Let's hope, fingers crossed. Please, they can
prove us wrong. Prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong. I'll be here with bells on, not literally, on Sunday, admitting I'm wrong if I am. Great job, Robbie. As always, we'll see you after the game. We'll see you then.